Hey everyone, strap in for today's deep dive. We're tackling an article that's, well, it's a bit of a whirlwind. It touches on social media, tribalism, the whole COVID thing,
hmm
and even Bitcoin. Yeah, it's a lot, I know. But what's really interesting is how the author ties it all together.
It's all about this push and pull between individual freedom and, centralized control. And that's a theme that's been playing out for, well, basically forever.
Right, it's like this constant tension throughout history. So
Exactly.
the article jumps right into social media, which,
Well, it's a perfect example of this tension, wouldn't you say?
boy,
I mean, it's incredible for connection, but it's also become this breeding ground for tribalism.
I never thought about it like that, but
It makes sense when you do.
yeah, it does.
It's that basic human instinct to form groups, us versus them. We see it everywhere, sports, politics, you name it.
And online, it's like those groups become echo chambers.
Exactly. And the article talks about this guy, Tom Woods, who argues that all this online information overload, it can actually stifle individual thought.
Interesting.
We feel this pressure to conform to our online tribes, even if we secretly disagree.
It's like we're hardwired for it.
It's true.
It's like everyone's so busy shouting their opinions. Those nuanced conversations you might have in person, they just vanish online.
Like trying to have a deep discussion about Hayek's Constitution of Liberty in a tweet.
Right. Good luck with that. And the article argues that this well, lack of historical perspective and critical thinking, it's a dangerous path.
It can lead to some, let's say, interesting situations.
And that brings us to COVID.
Right. The article uses the pandemic as a prime example.
Specifically, this idea of mass formation psychosis.
Okay. Yeah, that's a strong term.
Yeah, it kind of threw me off a bit.
I get it. And to be clear, this is straight from the article. Not necessarily a universally accepted medical term, just to be sure.
Okay, that makes sense.
But the article uses it to describe how fear and conformity can cloud our judgment, both individually and as a society.
Especially during something as chaotic as a pandemic, right?
Exactly. It's like everyone's looking for answers, trying to make sense of things,
And that's when those narratives can take hold.
and become really powerful.
So you're saying people get so caught up in the dominant narrative,
That they might not question it, even if the evidence is shaky.
even when it doesn't quite add up.
Right. And the article points to examples like Dr. Bhattacharya.
He got a lot of flack for questioning the early COVID models.
He did.
And then there's the whole Georgia reopening situation.
Which a lot of experts thought would be a disaster at the time.
But, as the article points out, it didn't exactly play out that way, did it?
Not quite. And to be clear, this isn't to downplay the very real struggles people faced during the pandemic,
Of course not.
but the article highlights these examples to emphasize how important open debate is, even when it challenges the accepted narrative.
And that leads us to federalism.
Which I know might sound dry.
It does. But the way they connected it to the pandemic, praising Florida's response,
That was interesting.
it showed how a decentralized system where states have some autonomy.
Can be a counterbalance to centralized control.
And whether you agree with Florida's approach or not, it's about having options.
Right, different approaches can emerge. It's that laboratories of democracy idea.
Exactly. One size fits all doesn't always work. And this same idea, this pushing boundaries, it's what makes the next topic so fascinating.
Which is?
Bitcoin. According to the article, at least.
Bitcoin seems like a jump from pandemic policies.
It does, but they tie it back to individual freedom in a way that, well, it makes you think.
I'm intrigued. Pushing boundaries is a good way to put it. The article makes Bitcoin sound like, well, imagine a world where you're in complete control of your own money.
No banks, no governments breathing down your neck.
Exactly. That's the whole idea behind Bitcoin. It's decentralized,
Yeah.
operates outside those traditional systems.
I get the appeal, but it always seemed a bit like the Wild West to me.
More like a digital gold rush, if you ask me.
Okay, I like that analogy.
You're responsible for your own, let's say your own pickaxe and gold nuggets.
So it's about individual responsibility.
Exactly. You own your Bitcoin. No one can just take it from you.
I can see why that's appealing to people, especially these days. With all the inflation worries, talk of government overreach.
And it's not just a modern thing,
Right.
The article talks about historical examples of alternative currencies.
Really? Like what?
Well, like during times of upheaval, people turn to different forms of money, local currencies, barter systems, even commodities like gold and silver.
So Bitcoin is like the modern day equivalent.
In a way, yeah.
It's fascinating how those patterns repeat throughout history. But let's be real. There are risks with Bitcoin too, right?
Of course, the article acknowledges that
It's not all sunshine and roses.
definitely not. It can be volatile. And security is huge. You have to be smart about it.
So it's not for the faint of heart.
You have to be willing to learn the ropes, manage the risks,
But for some people, those risks are worth it.
especially if you're looking for more control over your finances.
It all comes down to personal choice then, right?
Exactly.
Weighing the pros and cons, deciding what level of risk you're comfortable with.
Like any financial decision.
The article really seems to emphasize knowledge is power.
It is. The more you know about how Bitcoin works, the better equipped you'll be to make those decisions.
It's about being proactive, not just about your money, but about, well, about engaging with these complex systems that shape our world.
Social media, government policies, even something like Bitcoin.
It's about understanding the rules of the game and then deciding how you want to play. You know, it strikes me that this all boils down to thinking for yourself.
It really does.
We can't just blindly accept information, especially these days.
With so much coming at us from all sides.
Exactly. Everyone's got an agenda, everyone's pushing something.
So we have to be extra critical, right?
Absolutely.
Like whether it's social media, dealing with a global pandemic, or even diving into something like Bitcoin.
It's about asking questions, looking for different perspectives.
Being your own detective, in a way.
I like that, piecing together the truth from all these different puzzle pieces.
And that brings me back to something the article said that really resonated with me.
What's that?
It asked, how can understanding history and embracing critical thinking empower us?
Not just to survive the present, but to actually shape a better future.
Exactly. It's a call to action, wouldn't you say?
It really is. It's
Yeah.
about recognizing that we all have a role to play.
In shaping the world we want to live in.
And that starts with how we engage with information, with each other, with these complex systems that surround us.
It's about being active participants, not passive bystanders.
Oh, I love that. Well said.
Thank you.
It's a powerful note to end on.
It is. It gives me hope.
Me too. And on that note, we'll leave you to ponder that question. How can we use knowledge and critical thinking to shape a better future?
It's a question worth asking.
It is. Thanks for diving deep with us today, everyone.
Until next time.
Keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep those critical thinking skills sharp.